All right. And are you set up to do that? You going right now?
Yep, it's now recording.
Okay, welcome everybody. We have Barbara from her Councilwoman Christy Anson from the City Council. Camden's representing the city Parks, Rec, and Trails. And for the committee, we have Peter, Nathan, and Lisa on. Welcome everybody. I think everybody got a copy of the notes. If they look good, do we have a motion to approve the notes from the June 10th meeting?
I'll give a motion to approve.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Okay, thank you. And everybody in favor of approving those notes, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Thank you. All right. So I think Camden sent a email out just an hour or so ago about the updates on the Park and Rec projects that are in place right now. Do you want to go over that, Camden?
Yeah, I just thought for some people it may be helpful just to have it in front of them, but I was just gonna go through it real quick. We had a handful of projects, park tax projects from last year that we have been working on or closing up. We had the last smaller pavilion at Quail Cove. That's up, looks real nice. We got the park tax logo on it. We had a playground also, the Robinson Park one. You can see that one's been up for a bit. We also did just through city funding, we did a playground at Quail, not Quail, I think I said Quail Cove, I apologize, Rotary Park. We have a new playground there as well through city funds, but the one at Robinson that's park tax funded, it's got a cool logo just stamped onto one of the panels. I think that looks nice. The Quail Cove entrance is complete. We want to try and get some nice signage. Actually, I have another guy working on design work for these street banners, and then we want like a kind of an entrance monument, just kind of where the half circle is. Part of the sidewalk further up is not done, but that was done with intent because we knew or we suspected we'd be getting this bathroom approved, which we have. So we kind of left that undone so that we can put stuff in, get the bathroom. That's going to start happening in September. At the time when we were kind of looking at scheduled events, there wasn't a lot going on at that time, and we didn't want to get too later. And we're working with a contractor, and that was kind of the preferred time too. So it just kind of all worked out to have it happen at beginning of September, and then really by the third week, as it says here, which hopefully be wrapped up and kind of have it up and running. Probably just landscaping left at that point around it. And then we just have various trail, cans, trees, tables throughout the area. If you've been on the trail, like on 300 and kind of up along the river, you may see a couple of the new seats with the logo on.
Yep.
That's just a brief summary of stuff working on. We did the dog park a while ago, but we put in a really soft sand. We've actually gone through and redone, we dug out that sand because it was blowing around and causing a mess. And we put in a sand that's been used in other dog parks. It's a heavier, firmer, can be more compacted. And so that's another side project that was done. Another one is Evergreen. We got the sprinklers in and taking care of. The contractor was really slow on that, but they're slammed and busy, so we just had to work around that. So those are just some of the big projects that we've been working on. Jason mainly has been working on.
And the sand in the dog park, is that the dog park up by Art Dye?
No, we don't have any dog park there yet. There's still,
okay.
We're going to try and finish off the parking and other stuff, and we'll try and wrap that into that. There's just, you can tell there's more discussion that need to be had. It's in Easton Park.
Oh, Easton Park, okay.
Kind of like behind DI on 500 East.
Okay. Sounds good. And let's see. Is there any questions for Camden about those updates?
No, it looks like it's all coming along really well. You know,
Yeah.
well done. When did you say you were going to start that dog park about art diary? Is that going to be like on the last little bit once you've got the parking done on the back side?
Yeah, there's no set date. There's no funding. None that's locked in. I think we still want to pursue it, but we kind of just have to continue master planning. So we want to take that parking lot and try and wrap it around, and then there's some property acquisition tied to that, and we need to do like a roundabout. So there's a bunch of work we're working on. We're hoping to tie a plan for the dog park in there too. So there'll be time to discuss and do those sort of those like stakeholder involvement as we want during the process, but nothing's on the books yet.
Okay.
And I thought it was really nice. I was able to go up to the ribbon cutting at the new art dye facility, the concessions and scorekeeping, and I don't know, what do you call that building? Multi-purpose room building or what?
Yeah, I've been calling it scorekeeper tower, but it does have storage.
Yeah, and that was really nice. And the mayor gave a good little ribbon cutting speech, as did Clark and Rob, and that'll be a great facility. And I understand that adult softball is going to start here pretty quick.
Yes, I believe so.
All right, and then fall soccer also, I think, is registration's up and everything.
As I understand it, but don't ask any follow-up questions because I won't know.
Okay.
Yeah, soccer. I'm coaching my son Will, and so that's he has his first game this Saturday.
Yeah, this Saturday.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Great
Well, I thought-
program.
My kids participated in the Chalk Festival, and I understand that the park program, they funded part of that. And I thought it was just wonderfully ran. I think it was very enriching to the entire community. It was good for those who participated. I thought that was a very good use of funds. It was great. I mean, it was something that pretty much anybody could safely do and go look at and be a part of. So I thought that was something great that the park program kind of sponsored. So
Yep, and it was really nice. I don't know, some of us went up to Art Dye, went up for fireworks and stuff. And it was really, really nice not to have any of those new soccer fields parked on. I know there are a lot of people on them, and a lot of people throwing blankets out and everything. But it was just a different atmosphere, which was maybe a good thing without the carnival there and without the mass numbers of people trying to jam into that. I mean, Art Dye's big, but if you had half the population try to jam in there, it'd be pretty tight.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do that again next year.
Yes, that would be nice.
Great. I should recant what I said. It's not this Saturday, but the Saturday after. I don't know if that matters to many people, but I misspoke on when fall soccer starts.
Well, and Peter, just from past experience, if you volunteered this time, you will be a soccer coach for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's probably how it ends up.
Like giving
And
blood.
any other sport your kids are interested in, you'll probably coach that. Anyway, but it's all fun. It was all good. All right. Then, did the committee members have a chance to go over the parks map and look at the trails in the past month or so?
I personally looked over it all again. I don't know what areas you want to discuss first or in preparation for the city council meeting next month.
Well, and I'll let Peter and Nathan kind of speak to this, but I was interested in the rectangular land just south of the church and north of the boat harbor. Is that property that the city has acquired? Because it shows up similar to the rest of the parks as far as color and everything.
So, there you go. No, we don't have it acquired. If I suspect, when you look at the map, you see these generic circles that don't really line up with anything. And then you see that property that you're talking about. That was a very definite rectangle. And I think at the time when they looked at it, they saw that it was, had the river going through it. And so it really didn't have a developable use for it for that reason. And so I think they were felt safe to, they being the committee and the staff at the time felt safe to kind of really delineate it as an option for park space. But even we're talking with the property owner even now, and I think they're in California actually. And it's yet another one where they see dollar signs in their eyes as we're approaching them about the property. So we've already started the discussion to acquire it.
Right. I think that butts up against the Buckwalters property. I'm not sure.
So I think I missed the email, or maybe I just didn't notice it. Was there an email that had that drawing on there along with some trails?
I sent, there was I think it's 10 or 11 page park master plan. It had some brief descriptions, and then at the end it had a map of all the parks in American Fork. And it's on the city link too. But like Camden pointed out, it shows 2 or 3 circles which are unidentified. There we go, right there.
So this one over here on the right, this pink one, you see these generic, oh no, sorry, it's this one actually.
Yeah, it's that one.
These generic circles here, but then this very specific property here. And we're still interested and we're still wanting to work with them on that, just because that'd be a perfect river trail, the river going through it. There's great opportunities there, but it's just a matter of purchasing and acquiring it.
Gotcha.
Has anybody approached Ferris Blackhurst? Used to be a member of the committee. He owns the property. Just north, and it's a big section. There's actually a Blackhurst lane that leads to his house. I think he has alfalfa on most of it, and it's everything east and north of that little rectangle.
I feel very confident that he's been approached. You're talking about for park space or to acquire parks?
I'm sorry, you froze up, Camden.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You're talking about, has he been approached regarding acquiring land for park space?
Yep.
I haven't been part of any conversations. That's not to say that hasn't happened, prior to me or through Public Works somewhere. But I'll follow up and ask.
Yeah, just see if I know him personally. I've talked to him a number of times, and I don't know which church wards meet in that building, but Peter might know him too. But yeah, he owns that big section there, and then there's Buckwalters that own on the other side of that road that splits those 2 large areas. Anyway,
I know who the Buckwalters are. I'm not sure about the other owner, but in the past, another thing we've talked about in approaching some of these landowners, I don't imagine this would work with everybody, but I'm guessing it would help with some, and that is that Art Dye was donated, or at least some property was donated, and then Art Dye was purchased with money that was sold from that, with some namesake involved. And some of these owners, these landowners out there, might be interested in working something out with the city so that they have some namesake in a park. And so, Camden, you mentioned a lot of these guys see, when they get approached, they see dollars. Some people might also be interested in just simply having some namesake in a community that they have lived in a long period of their life. And you know what I mean? Same thing with Art Dye. the park was named after Art Dian. So there might be some of that could help in acquiring the property.
I agree. I think it'd be good. Like I envision maybe writing a letter from like the mayor, writing a letter to each of these people, making that request and kind of saying we can name it after you or something, but we're just asking for this.
Well, and I know the Buckwalders purchased. They used to live down here by me, and then they purchased that property 30 years ago. But Blackhursts have been in American Fork for 2 or 3 generations, and he's had that property as long as he might be. I don't know when he acquired it, but it's been 50 plus years ago. So
yeah,
that might be something along those
Well,
lines.
and Scott, we talked about it would be great as a committee to meet together once we know what we're asking for and what we can add to it as a city and pick the best person. Not saying that the mayor isn't the best person by any means, but just those that have the highest personal relationships, those that have the highest trust relationships. I think it would be great to involve and not just a blanket letter. It might be good to go personally with someone.
right.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I'd have to talk to Mayor Frost, but I think Ferris, he got put on the committee at my suggestion before I was the chairperson, and then I'm pretty sure Ferris knows Mayor Frost and 2 or 3 others on the committee, on the city council. But yes, that's an excellent suggestion. I mean, I'd be more than willing to be a part of that. I run into him every once in a while. He still plays racquetball up at the rec center.
So I was going to add, what Lisa said. Thank you because I think that's an important part of this. I also think it'd be helpful if we kind of went through the updating of the master plan, specifically this map that we're looking at here, because I really feel like the general targeted areas that we may want to focus our attention or efforts on have changed since this map. And so if we can get that updated and we feel confident about what we see, then we can make these just have these discussions with property owners, and maybe we do send a letter out to everyone there and see what we can get. But I do think it'd be good to maybe have tailored, conversations with people on the areas that we're most interested in.
So Camden, this was addressed a few months ago, but can you comment on your envision or vision of a master plan? Because we were basically told you can't ever really have a master plan. It's great to have a general. Can you guys hear me okay?
We're getting a lot of feedback.
You can or no?
We can hear. There's just some feedback when you're talking.
Yeah. Can I also give a plug that we should meet outside with masks on 6 feet apart next time, maybe? Because Zoom is really hard. But on a master plan, it is hard when you have the mayor and the city administrator telling us that they can't ever really make a master plan, that city council can always change that, which I understand. But I wonder if some of these property owners would like something that is concrete, as well as city people who live in the city. I'm sorry, guys, I haven't eaten. People who we want to vote, what citizens that would love to say, yeah, we want to vote for parks tax again, but we want to have a plan and see it come to fruition in the near future, even if that's 5 or 10 years. But we're not going to do a plan and then in a year change it, and in a year change it, and in a year change it.
Well, so the plan we have here is, if you've read through it, it's still pretty applicable today, and it was done in 2015. And I went and listened to the meetings that I had missed, where some of these discussions were had, where I'm hearing that the advice that Barbara or David gave was that master plans aren't useful. And I do not feel that that's what they were even saying. I think they were acknowledging that the council could change a plan. But realistically, even then, when they're talking about that, the process is council's like, we want to update this plan or we want to make this change. They would then go to you guys, the committee, and say, we would like to make this change. So So at no portion would you guys not be involved, or would the master plan not be involved? Whatever the master plan is at the time, that's what they're adhering to and following. They just may want to update it or change it, but they would involve you in doing that. That was the message I got when I went and listened to those things. I don't know if it was said as concisely or in so many words, but I don't think they were ever saying, just get rid of the master plan, we don't follow it.
Well, and
I don't
I-
think. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
well, I was just going to say, I think the impression was, yes, there's a master plan. This is just like a really short version of what came out of that meeting is, yes, there's a master plan. Yes, it's important, but the city council can change it pretty much depending on who's in office and group decisions. So,
And there would have to be a good reason to change it. Any
Right.
plan has to be flexible. You don't want to set something now and have to stick to it 10 years from now when everything has changed.
right.
It has to be
Um,
flexible. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think it was just we've been going back and forth on the need for parks on the south side, and I think kind of not leaving that topic. I know it's something that bothers all of us because I've seen it happen over the past 30 years that I've been in American Fork. Things have changed slightly, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think everybody in this meeting now and the city council are all on the same page as far as getting park space. It is harder to it's like those circles that are on there. City doesn't own any of that property right now, and it's proposed, and those aren't there's no acreage assigned to those circles of how big or how small they are. It's just that's kind of what's there right now. Is that not right, Camden?
Yeah, this is the recommendation, but we would want to update that. And I think we have more specific data we can use to update this with.
One thing that would help me a lot is that all that land south and east of Mountain Meadows, is there like a designation of what is considered the wetlands or protected lands there? I mean, has it been surveyed and marked off so we know exactly what's usable and what's not usable?
Yeah, I don't have that, but I know I saw it once over at Public Works. So I know they have some Army Corps of Engineer survey map of that area. So I would need to take a look at it again. Yeah, I that's all part of the discussion of updating this thing. I think it'd be really good to look at that, see what we can do, add that to this map. So it's part of
And
this.
then over west of Mountain Meadows, is there a good, I mean, those two circles are kind of right where the big high density apartment developments are, right?
Yeah, and the space and open space and all those requirements are just real fundamentally different in that space. More or less, we can almost overlay the TOD, the trans-oriented development here, and then we would adapt where these dots are for less description. We would adapt those, kind of move them over here in coverage because the density and the park space requirements here are completely different. So there's not an expectation to have a formal regular park in the TOD. The code for the TOD isn't written that way. It will have different green spaces, different types and sizes that we could include, but it won't necessarily be city owned. And it's just the requirements are very different. So that's an example of one of the things we need to update on this plan and on this map specifically.
Camden and Barbara, can you comment? Our parks tax comes back up in 2 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's some discretionary money still in a fund that has to be used, or I don't want to say used or lose, but kind of like that. That's a large amount that the city is trying to debate what to do with in parks. Is that correct still?
Like our impact fees or park impact fees?
No, I thought I had heard that there was a couple $1 million that maybe it was a grant. It was discussed a few meetings ago. Maybe it was a grant or.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You're probably referring to the county grant for the boat harbor.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
how
that
much
was-
is that?
1.5
somewhere around there.
or
Was there something in like the 5 million?
That's something that Rob mentioned to me that, and I think that is, I don't know if that's impact fees or money that the city set aside, but yeah, he said there was like 4 or 5 million that could be used to purchase, the city could use to purchase property, to do a park.
So do
Why
you
are-
know about that, Camden?
I'm not gonna. I guess I don't know exactly what he's talking about. I know we've got some money in impact fees. That grant was meant for the boat harbor, so unless we can get specific approval or allowance for something different than that, that's
I
not.
guess what I'm wondering is, as a committee, can you give us some direction on what money is truly available that we can give input to be used?
Yeah, I can find fund balances for all of those things.
Or a general, I mean, we talk about every month how expensive things are, but we also talk about it's not reality, sometimes what we're expecting, but I'm not sure we know what's truly there to be used and what isn't. Like, we talked about the past few months, some extra pickleball courts. It is something that's being used all the time, everyone that we have in the city. So if there's some areas in this next month preparing to go before city council, if there are some parameters that you can give us to say, hey, this is truly what we have or what needs to be used before the end of the year or next year or before parks tax, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, put that
Yep.
together. I think it's so we've talked about that, kind of seeing how much money we have, but comparing that to like how much it actually would cost to buy an acre of land down south, so that we can have better perspective of both sides, how much revenue we have and what the costs are. And so we were gonna find some comparable data to expenses as well, and I can put that together. So you're hoping for that information prior to the city council meeting in September.
Well, I actually thought we were going to have more city council members at this meeting, but I guess there were some parameters about who can meet when, which, just to put on note, I would love to have every city council member at every meeting that they want to attend. I'm not sure why they couldn't attend every meeting. I think they're the people who can make a change and hopefully hear all of the information. But yes, is next month when we present what we would like to have for the master plan? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's when I've been told that we're going to have the meeting with the city council, if not all, but most, probably at least 3 city councilmen and probably the mayor.
Which is fantastic, because I
Sorry.
think there's some issues that have just been circling, which would be great to address and see what we can do. But again, if we show up not prepared with what's reality financially and land accessibility, I'm not sure we'll get a lot done.
Well, and I just think most of it, I think we need to stress the committee's feeling of the importance of expanding the park space down on the south side, because usually, and this is a philosophical thing on my part, and I don't know if Nathan's got any evidence of this, but if there's some high density housing with some minimal space that the developers and then the HOA or whatever decide on for park, when those get full and the kids, teenagers, whatever, and this is a generalized statement, and I don't mean this about everybody's kids, because mine aren't like that and haven't been, but when they run out of things to do, then they go find things to do. And sometimes it's not the best things that they find to do. And that's the importance of having park space for me, especially on the south side where they don't have anything. They've got those 2 or 3 or 4 high density projects out on the west side by the Front Runner, across the street from Front Runner. And everybody wants something to do. And if you provide that through parks and recreation and trails, it takes, I mean, that's just what, and I know Peter and Nathan and everybody's talked about that. That's what draws good people into a city or makes them want to settle in a place and raise a family. And that's something that, I think we really need to focus on the south side. And the quarter mile rule is a stretch, but anyway, that's my 2 cents on the importance of expanding the park space down there. I mean, I was looking at the map, and Rotary Park, which I consider to be a pretty good sized park for, the middle of the city. It's got a full-size baseball field, lots of shade and big playground and 2 pavilions. I mean, with the growth there on the south side of the freeway, they'd need at least 2 that size. And I don't know what the acreage is on Rotary or whatever, but it would be nice if they had at least 2 parks that size.
Scott, yeah, I definitely second what you're saying. And with our community, the HOA put in this retention, this water retention area that they put grass on. That's a park. It doesn't have like playground equipment or anything. It's just an open grass area. And with the growth that's happening around Harbor Village, we see a lot of members from the surrounding neighborhoods coming to that park as though it's a city park. And it's not. It's private land. It's HOA land that we maintain and we pay for as an HOA. That issue is going to just get worse and worse if the city doesn't take care of the people that are moving in with appropriate park space.
Okay, so I have a really quick question, and it's been a concern of mine for quite some time. When I moved I'm in the northwest part of American Fork. When I moved in, like, parks were built immediately in. Like Henley Park is like 2 blocks away from me. Our specific area is dotted with lots of different parks. So how were we able to afford parks back then and we're not able to afford them now? Like, what did we do then that made it so we could have parks? Is there anybody that can answer that?
Well, land was
I
a lot.
don't know how
Sorry?
how land was set aside for that, other than, that's a,
Because we should just do that again. Nathan, what were you saying?
I just said land was probably much, much cheaper back then.
yeah.
And so that probably made
Yeah.
it easy.
So then hopefully, if there really is a couple million in park impact fees before it goes somewhere else, maybe we can make that a priority in the south side.
Impact.
And that's a
fees
good thought. That's the other thing I was going to say is land has increased, but I'm sure the impact fee the park impact fees have also increased, and the tax revenue has also increased.
Right, and I'm not
So
sure.
all of those should increase together.
And
Yeah.
I think Camden's going to look into all the funding possibilities that the city has to include the park tax and the impact fees. I mean, he's said he will do that. And like I said, with my casual conversations with a couple of city councilmen, there's some money there. And I think that Barbara's expressed this in a number of our meetings, and I think city council's on board, is, if we have the money, let's get something at least purchased that we can work on. And it goes back to, this committee is on the same page with the city and with the city employees that work the parks and develop the parks. Everybody's on the same page here. It's just, how do we approach this in a more in concert with one another, as opposed to feeling like somebody's not on board with this, because I think everybody's on board. It's just, how do we do this? How do we get it done? How do we get the funding? And once we get the land, then we really have an impact on what the park can look like and what would be in the park. Anyway, so back to the master plan. is there a way that, you know, I don't know, the Rotary Park's 10 acres. And I don't know if Peter feels like a couple of parks like that would suffice for that, that, you know, area that he's in, where it's more privately owned, not as high density population. Or Nathan.
I think it would be helpful. To be honest, I don't know what, I think there's probably a better way to determine, a good way to determine what size needs to be down here based off of population. And I don't have the population growth and all of those numbers that the city would, but
I know, sorry, Peter, I know Orem has a formula where they determine the acreage of parks based on the population. Does American Fork have something similar to that?
Yeah, they just showed you that.
Yeah, so sorry, the master plan is what we would do there. There's a level of service standard that we have in the master plan that would kind of drive the number of acres we would have. Here in the 2015 one, it says 6.25 acres per 1,000 people population. We can decide if we want to keep that or up it, or how we'd want
Are we meeting it right now, even at its current standard?
We were meeting it back then, but that's part of the update is I need to go inventory all the parks and we need to pull the latest population numbers and kind of see where we're at. That'll be telling too, but those are the updates that I think we as a community should work on doing. That's the data that will help make the decisions and drive the recommendations. Go ahead.
Is it possible that we can get all that updated before our meeting in September? And I'm not sure. We'll have to work with the city council. Barbara can go back and find out what works best for a date in September to meet with the city council. It might not be the second Wednesday or whatever, but
yeah, it'd be the 8th or the 22nd. And in terms of getting it updated, I'll see what I can do. I think we can get a lot of helpful information. There's a couple of these maps I think it'd be good to get updated. The area map, the quarter and half acre or half mile radius map to kind of show us how we would try and fulfill those coverages. I'll see what I can do, work with our GIS and our planning and public works to get that updated.
Camden, do you have any access to the upcoming building? You know, like it just would be good to take into consideration at least within the next couple of years, the population increase within the next couple of years. Like if you're going to have another big TOD come in, I think that would be useful to take into consideration when you're looking at your population. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So that's part of the discussion. That's why it's not as easy as just like drawing a circle on it at this point. We want to be more accurate. But that's why I said include public works and planning and stuff, is to kind of say what's in the hopper right now. And then we can go to our population projections through Mountain Land, Associated Governments. They provide projections there. And we kind of use all of that to kind of say what's the total amount of acres we project we'll need at build out, and what do we think we'll need in the next little bit based off what's currently in the hopper for development, and based off of that information, where do we want to place these parks and how big do we want them to be?
And I was just going to say, looking at my calendar, the 8th and 22nd are the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays. Wouldn't we be looking at 1st and 3rd?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry. I did a quick look.
Yeah.
I selected the city council meetings, not the work sessions.
Yeah.
And Camden, I know you generally have a meeting that conflicts with ours. Can we do one that you can come to?
For the city council work session, that's on a Tuesday. So like if we did the 15th, would you guys be able to attend the city council work session? Those are typically 4 to 6.
Well, and the key word there is attend, because I'm 100% with Lisa. I will wear a gown and goggles and gloves and a mask or whatever, just so we can meet together, because even this is better than the last meeting, but there's still a lot of breakup and echoing and feedback and all sorts of stuff. And is the city council meeting together, or do they plan on meeting together next month?
So right now they're doing via Zoom. and there hasn't been any problems for them, but I think they're at a point now where they've determined the secure, reliable lines or networks or whatever that they can go off of, and they use those. I don't know of any decision in September to change from that. So as right now, it would be a Zoom meeting.
Okay. So that does speak to us preparing for that, because I'm sure I don't know how much allotted time. I don't know if they're going to dedicate one whole work session to us, and I don't know if that's the plan or not.
Yeah, I think right now, if let's just say it's the 15th, I don't have that for sure, but if that's the case, I don't know if there's any other agenda items set, but as we approach that, generally other stuff will be added to it, and they kind of feel out how big these things are going to be. I think we would be taking up quite a bit of time, so they'll try to keep the rest light, but it would be good to maybe discuss kind of the strategy, who's going to speak, so that we're very focused and specific, and what you guys want to do.
Yeah.
Real quick, this might be backtracking just a little bit, but back to the topic of what the city is capable of doing as far as purchasing land in this area. Some piece of information that maybe I missed, maybe we have this information already. I've kind of asked for it in previous meetings, and maybe it's Camden, maybe you have it on your list of tasks of things you're trying to figure out. I don't know, but two pieces of information that I think would help answer that question well. One is, how much is the land per acre? I know we've thrown out $300,000 per acre, and I don't know where that number started. I think it was just thrown out loosely by, I'm not sure who, but I would be shocked if I would be shocked if the land was actually $300,000 in an area that has a high water table. So that if you're getting closer to the lake in some of these areas where we're looking to put a park, somebody can't be realistically thinking that they're going to do massive projects with a high water table, right? And therefore the land isn't going to be worth what it is in areas that you could do large projects. You could do a park, but you couldn't do a massive project, right, with a high water table. So the land's going to be less than I think a lot of us are thinking right now, as one. But it'd be good to get some actual somehow figure that out for sure. Get some comps somehow. I'm not sure how, or maybe talk to individuals that own the land there and say, how much are you looking for this land? And anyways, I don't know. Get a better number than what was thrown out at 300,000 per acre. I just don't know where that number came from. I think it was loosely thrown out. And then the other piece that I am really curious about is, in the last 10 years, how much money has been collected in impact fees on this southwest area? Because I think that number is a lot higher than this group is aware of as well. I think the cost to purchase land is lower than what we're thinking, and I think the number that has been collected in impact fees is a lot higher. So I'm curious about those two numbers specifically.
Hey, I apologize to the group. My phone's about to die, so if I cut out, my phone died.
Okay, if you cut out right now, you're the one that's speaking for everybody at the city council meeting, okay?
So,
Okay.
Camden, do you think those numbers are attainable? Are they really tricky?
The first one, as I said, the first one, we want to look into that, and we can figure out, and you're right, it'll be different around the south. The 300,000, I'm pretty sure they did it off the top of my head. It was David or one of our planners, just going off of neighboring or similar or close proximity properties and how much that land was. But yeah, if you get it up against the lake, where there's the flood plain stuff, it'll be a different amount. So we'll look at those costs. The impact fees localized to just below I-15 on the south side. I'm not saying no, I have no idea if that's information we can parcel out. We might be able to look at total impact fees, and maybe that's our starting point. But I don't know.
Or
look at
even,
just outside.
Even if you can't come up with a an accounting number, let's say, we might be able to come up with estimated or calculated number based off how many homes have gone in that area, and multiply that by the impact fee, which I think is $3,000 or $4,000. And so, you get several hundred homes that have been into that area, and you multiply it by 3,000 or 4,000, and it turns out to be quite a bit of money.
Yeah, there's a couple of things comment on, because there's no ordinance requirement to track the impact fees that way. I do, and I'm not 100% familiar with how the city did that, but I'm pretty sure there's no requirement on an audit wise to show that this area or all this money came from this area of town and all this money came from Easton Park area or whatever. And then the other thing everybody's got to realize, and I've seen this over the past 30 years numerous times, and I don't know if all of you are aware, there's supposed to be a causeway across Utah Lake that ends up somewhere between the boat harbor and over Lehigh Way. And the reason, a lot of the holdup is anytime a government, state, federal, local, whatever, starts approaching property owners, 9 out of 10 of them will ask at least a quarter to a third to a half more than what the property's actually worth, because they think the government has a bottomless pit of money to throw out for their properties. And I know that's part of the causeway issue, because I kind of know some people that were approached. Anyway, and that makes it difficult, because let's say an acre is really only 200,000. That might be to a developer, that might be to, you know, a friend or family member, whatever. But when the city, or like I say, state comes around and says, we need your property, the dollar signs start flashing in people's heads. And then, and it's no different than that little rectangle spot there. If you go down there, it's wooded, it's thick. They did, you know, and these people live in California, so I'm sure there's no interest in putting their name on it or whatever, but they're just looking to make money. And that's that. They've been trying to, I think the city's tried to acquire that piece of land for the past 12 years, if I remember right. They've tried to purchase that a number of times. Anyway, but Camden's going to work on those figures. So in preparation,
I can look at updating some of this general plan stuff on my end, some of the data, and it might help facilitate more of the discussion. But I think it might be good if you guys maybe had your own direction or stuff you wanted to say to council too. As I understand, it's just to kind of solidify the importance and the need for, you know, park space on the south side, which I know they're aware of, but I think it's any additional dollars beyond what we have, you know, we want to go towards this.
yes.
So we can do what it takes.
Well, and in this meeting, if we get these general figures on what monies are available, and you know what funds could be used for land purchase, I think we do just really need to focus on what kind of space are we looking at. Are we looking at 2 20-acre parks, or 2 10-acre parks, 1 20-acre park? Is that going to be enough? And I think, you know, I know it's hard to maybe prepare by the 15th of September. Exactly. We need kind of a pretty focused but general acreage, maybe. I don't know, but that's what we need to kind of have in place. And I don't know if we can put that together tonight, or if we need to have another maybe interim meeting with the committee to talk about that. I mean, I think, Peter, you'd be a good representative for our committee as far as presenting the need with us there to support you. I don't know how everybody else about that.
Well, And Scott, like you said, it's not only just buying the land. We've talked for years about trails that will connect to Rotary Park from the south side. Like I think we understand it doesn't all happen overnight. It can't all happen right away. But if we can put together a plan that at least, hey, this is what we have right now. What can we do every year? What is some sort of progression? So when Parks Tax comes back up, citizens of American Fork are going to want to vote for it again.
Right.
Second, how can we, I don't want to say project the future, but like Rosanna said, we should have some concrete numbers, whether it's law or, how they do it or not. We really should have a good idea as a city. What do we have? Where did we get it from? And what are we planning on getting? Which is what I've talked about in the city council meeting a few months ago and in our committee. We need to have builders be accountable and participate in giving land and helping with land that isn't swampland. And so if we can look to the future to go, not only how much are we going to collect from our own citizens in impact fees, but what can we do as far as a master plan as builders come before we completely build out, which is where we're headed in the near future. And that may be helpful in going to city council to say, okay, this is what we have. This is what we'd like to see every year, every 5 years, in 10 years. We talk about it all the time. We need to improve our rec center. We need a basketball gym where kids can play basketball. Not one in our city. Pickleball, it's something that is for all ages. And really in a time now where we have Corona and who knows what's going to happen with school or whatever else, we need great recreational opportunities
Right.
to spend time.
Yep. I agree.
But Camden, I just want you to know, and Barbara, I don't feel like they said a master plan isn't good, but I do feel it was made clear, at least to me, and I think to others, from what you're saying, Camden, maybe others have told you the same. It was very made clear that a master plan is never a master. And it does need to be flexible, which I completely understand. We talked about roads, we talked about water needs in the city, which obviously come before parks. I get it. But when you talk about Henley Park that took 20 years to get a parking lot paved, somewhere the master plan was never a master plan. And if we can hopefully get things on the agenda, at least in writing, maybe like you said, or Barbara said, as council has to go through and evaluate, at least there is something in writing that shows a purpose and a plan and a desire of your citizens.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and I agree 100%. What happens is in the master plan, I bet if you go back and look 15, 20 years ago, that Henley Park as it is now with the parking lot was envisioned and in the master plan. But then to your point, Lisa, and what you said is during that time, I also know that they had to replace the water mains all along 3rd North. And I think money shifts to where those things don't get accomplished or come to fruition in the timeliness that a lot of people thinks, but that's because the city council has to reallocate money sometimes. And I'm not talking, well, a little bit with the impact fees. Well,
Impact fees cannot be reallocated.
right. Not impact fees, but other funding streams, the taxes that are collected and things that are also none of the parks are funded strictly from the park fund or the impact fees. There's a lot that's picked up by the general budget. Anyway, it's a difficult part of being in the city council, and I haven't been there, but I've attended a lot of meetings in the past, and not as many as I should have recently, but I'll start doing that when I can come and visit. Anyway, it's just, and I feel for everybody's frustration with this situation, but it's nothing that everybody, city employees, city council, and us want to figure out and try to make things work better.
Absolutely.
Anyway, So how do we want to approach this on the 15th? Do we need to have another meeting with the committee and just talk about talking points and then see what Peter and Nathan and the committee feels about the parks end of things? I agree with Lisa. We really need to push. Oh, and that reminds me, there's no directional signs in the new paved road up to between Main Street and the rec center. They've got the bike and walk or they've got the bike lanes striped off, but
Oh, yeah.
they
You're
need
right.
those directional things painted in there, and they need to be going with traffic, not against traffic.
Yeah. I'll ask them if
Anyway,
they're going to follow up with that.
So
But
Camden,
anyway-
how long do you need to how much time do you need to get those numbers or kind of a feeling of where we've been, where we're at, and where we can go? Is the 15th just too soon? Do we need to have that meeting in October?
Well, here's my concern. I feel like we should be working on the master plan and updating it. And then once we feel like we have that done as a committee, so you guys have gone through, you've vetted it, we've tweaked some stuff together, not just me doing it and presenting it, but that you guys would then take it and present it to council. I was thinking that meeting would be different than what this one has become, which is what I thought was just kind of you guys venting your frustrations and your concerns and advocating again for parks on the south side. But it sounds like you're wanting the master plan stuff really put together before you have the conversation with council. And
no,
so
I'm fine.
What?
I'm fine with the conversation with council. I don't think we can have the master plan update, or I don't know if we can have the master plan updated, because again, these Zoom meetings are really, really, really difficult, especially when we would all like to be together looking at a map and pointing things out and being able to do some overlays and things like that, which are really difficult to do online. I think that maybe this next meeting would be a good time to, ask some hard questions and get some answers, and then we can work on the master plan and have that in place in October, November, present that, and then be ready for the park tax discussions that we have at the end of every year.
So Scott, do you feel like we need to submit to council some questions that we have? Otherwise, I feel like it's going to be like Camden, just personally. I don't know. I've got to look at that, which I can't blame them if they don't know what the questions are or the answers we want. So then we can say, okay, this is their feeling or their direction. How do we do a master plan around that? Or are you just expecting to go in? And when you say frustration, for me at least, it's not really frustration as much as we want to be an advocate. You have people on this committee who have been on it for years because they love the Recs department, the park department. We have kids in it. It's something that we want to promote or be an advocate for so that future generations, we want to be here for years to come. We want to see our kids playing and having fun and all that. So I hope it isn't coming across as total frustration as much as we're just trying to be good citizens and good advocates in an area that isn't really getting much attention.
Right. Well, no, I think we can represent our committee as far as the importance we place on parks, and especially getting more done down on the south side of the city. I think we can also ask some questions, and I don't know exactly. Peter has some specific things that he would like to know, but we may be able to answer, or Camden may be able to get the figures to answer at least one of those questions, or at least a close figure on the second one. But focusing on parks, trails, and recreation, we would like to see a solid trail, bike trail, walking path that somehow, some way, shape, or form goes from the boat harbor through the city, connects with 3rd North or whatever, up to Center Street, and then connects to the Murdoch canal trail. It would also be nice to see the trails connect parks, especially the bigger ones like Rotary Park and Library Park and Hunter Park and some of those parks. And then, but the focus on the park end of things is, for me, is strictly on the south side. I mean, in that meeting, you know, I pointed out I live in the older part of the city, but I've got like four fairly substantial parks within 2 or 3 blocks of where I live. And it would be nice that, you know, and it'd be nice if the city council could see that they could leave that legacy down on the south end of the city. You know, a similar thing where you sit back in one of these parks and sit there and think, oh, those people 40, 50, 60 years ago were they really had some thought that went into this plan. Anyway.
I think that's a good thought. I like that.
Well, so what do we want to do? Do we want to submit some questions and put some questions together to give the city council a heads up?
Barbara, can you comment? You're our city council rep. Can you comment on how you feel with your years of experience? It would be best.
My initial thought is that this is a meeting not so much as the committee presenting what you want, or the council saying this is what we want. It's sitting down and hammering things out together. I think that's the plan. And I hope that that's the collaborative effect that we're trying to come up with. I think if you had your major points that you brought out that you wanted to include, I think that would be perfect.
So are you going to take back today's meeting to council and give them a heads up, or is that something that you need us to do to reach out?
Well, I think the idea of coming up with the questions and things may be just as much for staff as it would be for the council, maybe even more so. So maybe Camden could take those things and you could work in conjunction with him and he could be looking those things up. He's got more association with the finance people and things like that than the council members do immediately anyway. Sorry, Camden.
Well, no, I don't know if I'm quite clear. You mean for them to ask the questions to me and see what I can answer on the staff side?
Either what you can answer or what, you know, you can go to Anna and get information about what money is available, what money is in here. You've got access, that's the word I'm looking for, to the books and things like that. A little more readily, the more updated books and things. And if I can help you do something, I can do that, you know. But maybe if people would just funnel their questions and you could say, oh, Anna would be the perfect one for this, or let's give this to so-and-so to research or whatever.
Yeah, and one of the
more smooth to do it that way.
Yeah, one of the questions I know I would be interested in that somebody asked already was if we're meeting the 6 point whatever acres per 1,000 people or per 1,000 residents, or however that's listed.
6.25.
6.25 acres per 1,000.
And are we talking about in the south end as well as up by the temple and the new developments talked about up there as well?
Yeah, this would apply to the entire city.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I would be definitely interested in seeing if we're still meeting that currently. And then we had Peter's questions about the impact fees. Anything else specific that Camden, and I can't remember what everything we've talked about. Do you have anything else on your list, Camden?
No, in general, I feel like this is, for me, it's kind of like, yes, let's update the master plan and all the data associated with it. We want to look at these things. And so with that direction, I feel like we can finally get started. To me, it felt like we hadn't quite doubled down on that, or I guess fully embraced that. And so that it's all the data associated with that. It's going to be the number of parks, the level of service, the 6.25. Do we still want to keep it at, quarter mile, half mile? In the master plan, there's a narrative that even says we want a art dye size and type of park on the south side as well. And it doesn't sound like that's changed, but those are the things that it's like, that's the data and that's the decisions and that's the information. I think I can update stuff on my end, but then the committee, then it's the committee's turn to really fine tune it and focus it in the direction we want to head.
Right. And the other one I think Rosanna brought up, which would be interesting, is we're landlocked in a lot of areas, but the projected population increase over the next 10 years down on the south side where where there's still land that they're building on. See what that looks like.
Yeah, and that's data in it too. In 2015, it kind of said, I can't remember where, but it said, based off build out projections, we need, and based off our level of service standard, we need this many hundred, I think it was like 110 acres or something like that. No, had to have been more than that probably. And so that's updating that number too, but that it's informed by our population, our projections, and our development. So all of those numbers, it's a simple number, but to get to it is all the work that we would be doing together.
Because surely down there on the south side, you've at least had 1,000 people, don't you think? Especially with the high density, and there hasn't been a park to answer to that population increase. Or maybe you can just double check that. I don't know what needs.
Yeah, we've had a lot more than 1,000 people down here.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem like the number, like we have, so many acres per 1,000 people, but there's no acreage going into the south side according to the increase in population, including up by the temple. That's huge. That's a huge development also. And there's no park, like easily accessible park right in that area.
Well, yeah, the accessibility is a question. If you look at Quail Cove and
Val Vista.
What's the park up there by Val Vista. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, but you can't send little kids to that park.
Yeah, you have to go across a really busy road.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yes, I agree. And so the access is go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and those are builders that have money and means to give you parkland.
Yep.
And I don't know that we took the fullest advantage of that.
One thing to remember is the builders have the option to donate land or to pay the fees.
Right, but if they pay the fees, then that money should really go to that use. I get it might be needed for roads or for water, and that is a top priority, but we keep collecting fees, but not doing parks.
If they pay the fees, it stays in that fund.
So it must be a pretty good sized fund, Barbara. Do you know the amount on that fund?
I don't.
Is it in the 3, 4, 5 million?
I'm not good.
You're talking about the impact fee?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it kind of seems like we're stockpiling impact fees. Like, where are they going?
We have, I think it's 3 million. That's I don't really want to give you a number, but I want to say it's around 3 million because I got to net out whatever we're obligated for art dye and to make sure there's no other obligations we have to pay out of it before I give you.
Yeah, so maybe that's good information, Kendon, when you go over it to say, this is really what we have to work with.
Right.
This is how much Parks Department needs. I mean, I know our Parks Department employees have been cut, things like that, okay, there's more to it than just we have this fund. But I think before we can give you an educated plan, you have to know what your finances are, just like you do in a family. You can't just give a plan without knowing where it's coming from.
Yep. Well, and it would be interesting, not that we can answer this right now, but do the developers pay their impact fees up front? Because then the city could turn around and buy 3/4 acre, 4/4 acre, 6/4 acre lots in the center of their development and set it aside for parks. If that's what they choose to do, instead of giving up land, they pay an impact, or they pay the
So-
impact fees.
So I think I can probably answer that. For us, the money was taken out at time of close. So at the closing, from everything I could understand on my documents, when I closed, the money was taken out at that point and given to the city. So it's, so I think the unit does have to be closed on before the city gets money.
So basically, we're yeah.
But
That's
the builder
probably-
pays those fees,
Yeah.
not, I mean, the builder is paying for the land impact fees. That's a total different thing. What you're paying for,
Yeah,
Peter, is
that's-
for your individual lot. The builder has to pay their own impact fees.
Yeah, so if the
Yeah,
builder
maybe-
pays their impact fees up front, couldn't the city turn around and buy lots off the builder to set aside for parks? Because you didn't scan that map all the way up to, or like around the Temple or Val Vista, but that's been a discussion that we've had before about, they put that development in and there's no park space, and then people pointed out, well, Val Vista is less than a quarter mile away, but then we pointed out that it's not an easy trip for a 8-year-old kid on a bike to get to Val Vista from that new development behind the Temple.
No. Well, and lastly, Camden, if you could report back, we keep saying, can we contact individual business owners, individual, residents who own land, companies? Is there a spot that American Fork City is willing to help contribute to if we can get help from the community, so that we kind of also can put that into the plan?
When you say
Is there an
contribute as
area
well,
that, is okay according to the county and according to the city and all of that?
So you're asking, like, what areas is the city willing to kind of say, yes, this is a property we want to purchase?
Well, in general, or a general area, I think we've talked about before, some of the land is county, and so, or it crosses county, so there's some hesitation in some areas of the south side, or like Scott mentioned with the bridge coming over. I think if you could give us some input on where feasibly could we do another regional park
Sure.
if we had the money. Not that we can,
In
but
my mind, we would, again, kind of update the master plan. And when I say that is we look at these metrics that we have in the plan right now, the 6.25 and the buffer, the quarter mile stuff, and we start mapping these out, and then we come up with the areas we're interested in. We decide how many big parks we want, and then that covers that, as well as smaller ones. And then once we do that, then we have more of a focus. Then we actually start looking at the properties there, and we look at the current snapshot of the area, kind of saying what is county, what is city, what property owners are interested, what property owners are uninterested, what will be annexing soon to based off development, and all those are kind of what can we do right now. That'll inform those decisions. But it would start with kind of knowing where we want to go.
Well,
The big picture.
I hope I'm not speaking for the committee too much, but I think we just want some land. But we don't know, as committee members, we don't know what's county, at least I don't. I don't know what has certain parameters governmental wise. So if you could just enlighten us a little bit on this area is totally off limits, or, hey, these areas are some you could choose from, and then we could go over how are the trails, what's near us, how can we connect.
Yeah.
But we just keep chasing our tail because we don't really have any information to make even an educated guess.
Yeah, I think we should look at that. Yeah, and I can get that together, and we can discuss it as a committee when we look at the map.
One thing
Awesome, thanks.
One thing to be very careful for is not to make any promises, because committee members cannot commit and say, okay, we'll name this park after you or whatever. It has to be a city action. And you can say this is a possibility, and I'll take it to them and present it and let you know. But don't make promises that way. Say it has happened in the past, it could happen now.
Yeah, I think that's full circle back to what we started with kind of earlier on is once we kind of have this plan in place and this information, that's when we kind of strategize the best way to approach people and what to do there. And so, yeah, it wouldn't be just us running out, knocking on doors, the committee or even staff doing that. It would kind of be who has the best contact, what's the current we would need to talk to Public Works even, and maybe even the city manager, just because some of these developments that are occurring are sensitive and so you kind of need to know that environment to navigate those waters too when you're talking to somebody.
Right.
No, I appreciate that. And I hope that the city will also be an advocate, like we've talked about with Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
If when they are approaching companies who want to come build or they're being approached, that they can keep in mind recreational space.
Well, and yeah, and a lot of those big developments do look at, or big companies do look at what kind of recreation is offered in that immediate area. I was going to say a perfect example of, and I don't know how this came about, but once the land's purchased, which is kind of on the city, I mean, we can approach some people maybe, but when we start putting things in the park, that's when we can go to businesses. Camden, do you have any idea how they got the starting blocks for the swim team up at the pool, or for the swimming competitions up at the pool? Because they're each
No, I heard
named.
that those were labeled or branded. Looks like it was donated by, I can't remember who. So I'm guessing Derek just on his own reached out to somebody and got that.
Yeah, because there's one from doTERRA, there's one from a family, there's one from Doug Smith, I think. And, you know, I would imagine each one of those cost maybe a couple $1,000s. I don't know. I mean, they're really well built, really well done. But that's the kind of thing I think the committee would like to help with, if possible. And like with what you and Barbara said, we got to have the plan done and then get the land and then get a better idea of what you know, the city's willing to do to get some of those things donated, like a big playground or some kind of splash pad or whatever.
Yeah. I actually have to go. Is there anything else you need from me or?
No, I think what just to really wind up quickly, let's all put together 2 or 3 questions that each one of us would like to ask, like priority questions. And then the committee, we can just email back and forth and then maybe give everybody 5-10 minutes to, you know, ask those questions or whatever. And they can't be too far off base of what we've given Camden, what we've asked Camden to gather as far as information goes. But really just focus on those things that we've talked about, the land acquisition and how much land do we want to see on the south side set aside for park space, and you know what we'd like to see the trail look like in the next 5 to 10 years, and then you know that's the basis of what we're going to do in the master plan. Is everybody okay with that?
Sounds good.
Sounds
All right.
great. Thank you, everyone.
So let's move to adjourn before Rosanna takes off on us.
Okay, I'll start.
I second.
Okay, that's unanimous, and we're going to meet on the 15th.
At what time?
What time's their meeting, Camden?
4 o'clock.
4?
4 o'clock.
Okay.
Will you let us know where?
Yes, if it's not Zoom. I mean, we'll send you a link. Zoom. If it's not Zoom, I'll let you know. It would probably be at the city administration building here.
Camden, I know multiple city committees have already met in person. If there's any chance that you can suggest, if that's our committee request, not just me, we would love to meet in person. We can do it safely. Our kids are going back to school. We would love to do it in person.
Like I said, we'll wear masks, goggles, gloves, and a gown if they want us to.
Sure. Yeah. Barbara and I will pass the message along based off, you know, they have other considerations to help kind of inform when they do that, when they'll make that transition back, but we'll definitely let them know the desire.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See y'all later.